welcome to this edition of the DGD podcast. As always, the NCDGD himself, Robert Reynolds. Got Harris Areno from Top Dog Talks on with me today, and we're going to go over the scrimmage that took place Saturday. Not fully in depth, but we're going to talk some key takeaways from the scrimmage Saturday. First off, the show is brought to you by La Terrain Watches. Use code DGD at checkout, get 10% off your purchase site-wide. Also, check out the Patreon and the Discord. Discord.gg/Bones Brigade. Patreon.com/DGD podcast. Get inside intel you won't catch anywhere else. And join our free community Discord. It is completely free for those that are curious. Great community going on there. With that being said, hey, welcome to the show again, Harrison. How you doing, buddy?
Doing great, Robert. Thanks for having me on, bud. It's always a great time to be on the DGD podcast with the Bones Brigade. I'm looking forward to another great episode and talking to you again, chopping it up.
Oh, you know how it goes, man. You absolutely know how it goes. So we're going to go ahead and talk about this, man, because I think it's pretty important stuff, right? For those, obviously, that did not know, Georgia holds their first scrimmage of the spring practices. And listen, there are some good takeaways, in my opinion, right? We'll go ahead and get started with this. I'm going to let you, since you're the guest, do you want to start with the offensive takeaways or the defensive takeaways?
I think defense is where it's going to get a little interesting.
I'm with you there. So if that being said, we'll go ahead and start with the defense, right? First takeaway, right? There's some work to be done, right? And listen, we kind of expected this, right? The real ones know in that regard. Look, you're losing a ton of talent to the NFL draft, and that's fine, right? So you kind of expect some growth, growing pains and hiccups and things like that, and that's why you have spring practices. Get that stuff out of the way, get the guys ready to go, because there's a lot of rotating, moving pieces, right? There's all these linebacker spots getting settled. Now, obviously, you've got a couple guys that we know are going to be rolling with the ones. But moving forward, you can look at guys that, especially in the linebacking core, JDJ, we'll talk about in just a second. Smile Mondon, right? Xavier Sori, all these guys, right? Robert Bill. There's just so many pieces moving around, and it's just getting guys set up and just finding the best fit and who's going to be able to start come September against Oregon. But I want to get your thoughts on the defensive takeaways from a mile high standpoint, if you want to look at it. What were your takeaways, Harrison?
I think the big thing was, like Robert said, there is a lot of talent leaving this defense from a year ago. The defense that took college football by storm through the first 12 weeks of the season. Obviously Georgia went on that undefeated run, going 12-0 on their schedule. Only hiccup being that Alabama game. And I mean, really putting that SEC championship game aside, the defense really couldn't do any wrong. I mean, they always made plays. They even scored some touchdowns for the Georgia's offense, even when Georgia's offense wasn't hitting on all cylinders in a game like, Florida for the first half, where, I mean, that defense just blew the doors off the Gators for the most part. So I think defensively, there's going to be a growing pains. But, one thing that I think is a constant from season to season is, the offense is always going to beat up on the defense, for the first few weeks of an offseason. I think that's been a constant under Kirby Smart, even with the great defenses. I think, the tone that is set is by Kirby Smart and by the staff is, hey, we may be a week or two behind these guys install-wise. The offense may be, they have more starters than we got returning. They got all this production coming back when we got, 3 or 4 potential first-round draft picks that have departed the team. So I think I'm not too worried about the defense being, I don't want to say manhandled by the offense, but I'm not too worried about it right now because, I mean, knowing Kirby Smart, Glenn Schumann, Will Muschamp, they're going to get those guys right. I think the big thing is, this is the youth movement for Georgia. Robert's already said Jamon Dumas-Johnson, Jalen Walker, a true freshman linebacker, getting, a lot of snaps, a lot of reps this spring. And that's no insider information. That's no news to anyone else. I'm sure Rob's already talked about it. With all the injuries Georgia's had so far this offseason, it's only going to bode well for the future of this team. I mean, you look at Kamari Lassiter, all these freshmen, they're going to get a lot of snaps in spring and in the fall, and it's going to benefit them down the line.
Oh, no doubt about it. I mean, you sit there, you take, obviously take what we had last year, right? You had a lot of experience coming in, Jordan Davis, Devontae Wyatt, coming back, right? For these senior seasons for one final run, right? Running it back. Unfinished business was the hashtag back, last year. You don't have that right now. You have a couple guys. You have Nolan Smith. You have Chris Smith, Tyke, all right, William Poole. Listen, and these guys are going to be expected to, to keep that, the leadership model, the, how Kirby envisions that defense and the team for that matter. These guys are going to be the next, group of guys, right? The core of the leadership, right? But obviously, I think Kirby wants the leadership to trickle into everybody, right? Last year, we heard it at times where the freshmen were policing themselves, and that the culture, right? The culture in that regard is vital for success. So, you're getting guys into new positions, like more of a leadership role, which you hear about, Kirby Smart getting on to Stetson. It's the same concept, right? You need that kind of thing, right? You need the accountability. And Kirby's going to have these select few guys, even though you don't want to say it, this. There's a select few guys that we know are going to be looked at as the captains and the leaders of this team. And he's going to hold them to just a slightly higher level of standard than the other guys. Now that level is still dramatically high, right? Because you're just coming off a national title. You have to sit there and expect, people going to come at you, things like that. So you have to be disciplined. And Kirby knows that, right? You heard it in the Florida halftime speech, right? Discipline. You heard it there. It's constantly preached to by Kirby Smart, and there's no reason why you shouldn't expect the same, whether it's Kirby Smart or any Georgia fan. But you sit there, you've also got a lot of youth. Now, I'm not saying experience, I'm saying youth in these spots trying to fight for these starting roles, right? Like Jonathan Dumas Johnson, in my opinion, is going to be a dude. I love the fact what he brings, right? I saw out of high school, he's ready to go. And it showed last year when he sits there and he has a pick six and just making plays, right? Forced fumble in Saturday scrimmage. So you see he has the ability to make these plays. Now it's translating it on a consistent basis if he were to become the starter at whatever spot he is, right? And I think you're going to see that, throughout all three levels of the defense, right? You're going to see these things. But to your point, Harrison, right? We talked about the offense being ahead, right? And that's typical for most offense and most teams in general, for that matter. You have your offense ahead of your defense. And listen, Georgia's bringing back a ton of offensive production, right? Don't get too caught up on the fact that Jermaine Burton left, right? Look, you're looking at the injuries with the tight end position. I get it. Brock Bowers not there for the spring. Darnell not for the spring. I get it. But when you have the talent that Todd Hartley's brought in, a Rick Gilbert, Oscar Dell, right? That right there, you're going to be fine. And then you look at the receiver position, right? Don Blaylock is back, folks. I don't think, if you don't understand, expect that to know now. My man is back. He had a huge day Saturday, huge day. You need that, right? Going into the season, we knew AD had probably solidified himself because, let's be honest, great year last year. The stats favored Brock Bowers, and that's okay. But when it came down to clutch moments, guess who was making big-time plays? Harrison, you want to answer that for me, my man?
Adonai Mitchell. And
Exactly.
I mean, the national championship catch, there's no catch bigger than that. I mean, yes, Run Lindsey Run is I mean, probably still, well, I don't know. The Run Lindsey Run probably still ranks number one in a lot of people's minds when it comes to big plays and big catches in a game. But that AD Mitchell play, Rob, I don't know where you rank it, but it's going to be right up there because it delivered Georgia the national championship.
Listen, not only did it get us the go-ahead touchdown, right, but the difficulty on that catch, right, to make that catch is ridiculous. Like, you see these guys making crazy plays now, and it almost becomes the norm that they're going to get caught, right? But I still don't think people understand just how difficult it was to catch that with the guy draped, right there, and still hold on to it through. So it's really important, that shows you exactly what we saw all the way to Pat this past G-Day. A.D. Mitchell season last G-Day too, if you don't remember. It was like, okay, so we got us a guy, right? And this is 3-star coming out of high school, true freshman. Okay, got you. Now you sit there this year, coming into G-Day, he is the guy in the receiving core. And I don't think there's really a question after that. You know what I mean? He solidified himself as a bona fide wide receiver 1 on the outside. We know what he's capable of. And now we need other guys to sit there to get healthy and gain confidence and get the production up to help him out, help Bowers out, because teams are going to, and this is going to what we'll transition to now, with the offensive efficiency that we had last season and bringing back all the key pieces that we had, teams are going to sit there and try to scheme Brock Bowers out, right? They're going to try to scheme A.D. Mitchell to where he can't be as effective. So you're going to need guys like Keiris Jackson. You're going to need guys like Ladd McConkey to make even more of a step up to sit there and counterbalance these schematical adjustments. And this is why Stetson Bennett and the whole quarterback competition right now that we're seeing is so crucial, because Stetson brings back a ton of experience. Carson might not have the starting experience, but he's got the talent. So same with Brock Vandegrift. Getting these guys rotation and getting their confidence up for one is going to make this quarterback competition more exciting for one. They're getting each other better, but which in turn, whoever starts will help this offense be efficient and even more efficient than what we saw last season to possibly help with a defensive regression that I'm expecting, at least, even if it's ever slightly, right? I still think you're going to see some regression, because it's just the level of play from last season is so high. You can't expect it to be that high just yet. Yeah, I expect it to be high. I just don't know about that high. So the offensive efficiency, if you have the right key pieces in place, that offense can take a next step up and even help the defense out as well. Because how many times have we saw in years past with Harrison where the defense basically bailed out the offense? And now it's almost this situation where the offense has the opportunity to perhaps bail the defense out if something were to happen, right? The efficiency was scoring, bringing in Bobo, which I think people don't really understand just how important that was. You're adding firepower to an even more potent offense. Listen, it might not be Oklahoma 80-yard bombs, but it's methodical, it's efficient, and that's the most important factor right there, is efficiency. If you get the ball and you score points every drive, I would say more times than not, you're going to win the game, especially if you have a defense that can make stops. So, the quarterback position is going to be key, but the offense, getting the right guys in the playmaking positions, right? Does Ladd McConkey break out another one? Don Blaylock, is he coming back in, fully healthy and ready to go? Based off of Saturday, there's a damn good chance that you could sit there and see Don Blaylock be completely back and be a true passing threat come September. But I want to ask you a question first while we're sitting here as well. From the offensive side of the ball, what was your main takeaway from what position group that you were excited about, or that you were just the most intrigued about? What position group on the offense was it from Saturday?
I think, from reading the various reports that come out, that came out over the weekend, and particularly the one that I'm loyal to and work with, Brooks Austin's, SI Dogs Daily report and his 3 takeaways. It was as he said in his article, the quote, three-headed monster out of the backfield. I mean, you've already mentioned them: Kenny McIntosh, Kendall Milton, Dejan Edwards. Brooks said it best. I mean, they were breaking off runs off to a really good start in spring, and I think it's a group that I don't think many are talking about. Kendall Milton's, had a lot of flashes. He's made a lot of plays so far throughout his Georgia career, but injuries have kind of hurt him a little bit. In the past, I think over the last 2 seasons, he's missed games because of injury, and that's going to be the big question for him this season, is with him taking on the major workload, is, how does he last? How does he hold up durability-wise, and can he keep healthy and stay on the field? Same thing with Kenny McIntosh. I mean, McIntosh missed time last season, just months after seeing him in the Peach Bowl, really break out and help Georgia on that game-winning drive that set up that Jack Podlesny field goal. McIntosh was the guy that drive. He was making plays left and right. He was the check down for JT Daniels and did a lot for that offense. So I've been really, not being at the scrimmage, but from what we've all seen come out on the internet, not behind paywalls, but in on free internet, from what we can talk about for the most part, I think running backs have been the headlines, and I think having a good running game in the offseason is only going to make the defense better because I mean I think it's people have talked about it in the past is, the more physical team is going to be the one that's used to playing the run or used to running the ball. I mean, there's no question that Georgia's linemen, you know, will benefit from playing a strong running game. So I'm interested to see how that running game progresses throughout the year. I think, they got the three backs they need, not to mention Branson Robinson. I mean, dude's going to be a beast when he gets on campus and he
Oh
starts
yeah.
getting some carries. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
look at his physique in high school. Absolutely ridiculous.
And we can't sleep on Andrew Paul either, right? I think this is where Kirby prides himself on it when it comes to offense, is having a stable of backs, right, that are all complementary to each other, right? I think this year is going to be interesting because Kendall and Kenny are both really multidimensional already, right? And I felt like in years past with Zeus and Cook, it was almost niche-esque, right, where Zeus was in for runs and pass protection. As soon as Kenny or not Kenny, but as soon as James Cook would switch in, it was almost like people were expecting pass. And this year, you kind of saw that balance between Kenny and not Kenny. I keep doing this. I'm so fascinated with it. James Cook and Zeus. You saw this balance, right, where Zeus would come out and catch passes out of the backfield. Kenny, listen, James Cook had the block, right, the block for Stetson's pass to A.D. Mitchell. Go back, and if you didn't remember that, go back and watch that block. He set a perfect block to allow Stetson just enough time to get that ball out. So we saw this kind of balancing act, right? And I loved it. But I think with Kendall and Kenny, there we go. And I can finally say Kenny now. Sitting there, you look at the balance these guys have. Kendall can run extremely hard, very physical. He's kind of like your Zeus, but I think he's a little bit more balanced in the pass game. Whereas Kenny, right, this is going to be K1, K2 at this point. Good Lord. You're basically looking at, true balance, can do it all, right? So when he's on the field, man, defenses got so confused because, it's just a mismatch because you don't know how to scheme against him. He can pass the ball, ask Michigan. He can run the ball, obviously, extremely well. And he's definitely a good receiver out of the backfield. So it's just interesting to see how this is going to play out, especially in the running back room. And then when it comes to the fourth quarter and these guys are, wearing teams down, then you can throw in Branson Robinson, sprinkle Branson in there or something, and let him bully ball you down and score a touchdown or two. I'd love to see that too.
Pretty
So
much what Dejan Edwards did for the last 2 seasons. Throw him in the fourth quarter in a game where maybe you're already up big time. Let Dejan Edwards get in there with his physical running style and just bowl people over. A man among children almost.
yeah, I definitely, honestly, and listen, we're not sleeping on Dejan Edwards because Dejan, he has been underrated so far. But I'm telling you, when he gets on the field, his patience and his physical running truly shine. And it's really a sight for, sore eyes. When you sit there, you have this kind of, you feel like this drop off in the running back room, and it's really not a drop off at all because he runs so well. He's a lot more patient. So, Zeus had a real big issue with just trying to lower his head and go. And that's the exact opposite, right? It's just one of those things where, like, you see he's so patient. It kind of reminds me of like Le'Veon Bell back with the Steelers, right? You really saw that with his patience. He would sit back there and kind of just hesitate, tap, 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 and go. He had that burst to sit there and do that, and that's what Dejan can bring. We really saw his patience, and when you get that and you let the guy, you take the time and you be patient, you let your blocks form, and then hit the hole. That right there can turn a 2-yard, 3-yard gain into a huge hit your head on the goalpost type game. And that's key, right? That's what you want, especially in the fourth quarter when you're already asserting your dominance. But so, I think you're looking at that right there. there's just a lot to take away from the offensive side as we see the Brigadiers here. Chad Buchanan, my man. But, Harrison, what are your thoughts on the potential of having this in one specific package, if you will? You have Kendall Milton at your running back. You have A.D. Mitchell outside. And then you've got Darnell, Brock Bowers, or Rick Gilbert in 13 personnel. What do you do if you're Todd Monken? What would you do, and how scared would you be as a defender seeing that come out?
As a defensive coordinator, I don't know what I would put on the field. I mean, are you going to come out in a heavy package and trying to get as many defensive linemen on the field, or try and get 3 to 4 linebackers on the field so you can, help prevent against the run? Like, what are you running against those guys? It's almost like Georgia's going to force you into a nickel package where you got more DBs than you probably want to against, usually a heavy run formation. In the past, before Georgia, before Brock Bowers, 13 personnel, that's a running package. I mean, you're going to run behind all those big bodies. Now it's hey, we can run 99.9% of our offense out of 13 personnel because we can do whatever we want. We can dictate what you do defensively. And I think that's the beauty of what Georgia has personnel-wise is, 13 personnel. You got, like Robert said, Brock Bowers, Eric Gilbert, Darnell Washington, Kendall Milton, in the backfield. And then you got A.D. Mitchell, all these guys on the outside at receiver. I mean, you can go run, you can go pass. You can do whatever you want and just have your way, because either way, you're just going to take what the defense gives you. If the defense goes out there in a nickel package, then they're already, susceptible to the run. You can go run if they're not a good, if they don't have good run support from their DBs. But if they're good in run support, then you should go pass it on them, because how are you going to guard all three guys at tight end specifically?
I'll tell you how you guard them. You go the Texas A&M route and recruit 5 stars D linemen. That's what you do. And speaking
then you have a target
that,
on your back for a expiration date.
Speaking of that, I'm gonna go off on not a tangent, but I'm definitely going to bring this up. So, for those that didn't know, LT Overton, Labius Overton commits to A&M Friday, right? We talked about it Friday right before we went off the air. At 3 o'clock Friday, he was going to announce his commitment. I made my prediction for A&M at the time, and I was right. A&M signs 8 5-stars, according to 24/7 Composite. I don't think that's the most ever, right? We know that their class was already the highest ever according to the rankings that you see. Just adding insult to injury there by adding another 5 stars. So I wouldn't be I haven't looked at the numbers, but I know it's well over 330, and that's by far the highest you'll ever see or you've ever seen. And it might be something that you might never see again. But I want to show you something, Harrison. I got to bring this up here for you. So how do you respond to this? There we go. Let's do this, right? Let's do this.
Ooh.
Under Jimbo Fisher, we're going to look over here. See this, guys? Look right there, right? Oh, right there. There we go, boys. 2018. Look at these records and look at the recruiting rankings, right? 2018, 9-4, right? 17th overall in the country. 2019, 4th overall, going 8-5. 6th overall goes 9-1. 8th overall in 2021 goes 8-4. And now he's first in the recruiting class with 8 5-stars. And we don't know what we don't know what's going to be looking like, but I can about assure you it's probably going to be at least 9-3. Why do kids want to go to A&M? Is that what they're looking at? It can't be money, right? It just surely can't be that.
I just want to say real quick, Robert, before we do get into this, I mean, let's just go ahead and give props to Jimbo Fisher for recruiting a number 1 ranked class off a 8-4, and I mean, you're averaging about 9 wins a season. I mean, go find me another coach who can have 9 wins a season and get another number 1 recruiting class. I mean, that's ridiculous.
And listen, just based off of College Station as a place and an environment, right? 8-4 record. Listen, the best cult you'll ever see to have an 8 5-stars and bring the top class by far, right? That's impressive. That's really impressive. But I'm telling you right now, in all seriousness, keep it together and we'll see what happens. But right now, he's got multiple things to worry about. That right there, that class, tells me that in 3 years, his ass better have won a national title or his ass is gone.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's
Mm-hmm.
no reason at this point. You just signed the best class ever. So if you can't get it done in 3 years, I don't know why you're still there if you're A&M. And if listen, money apparently is non-factor there at A&M. Listen, if I'm a booster or an alumni, I'm really scratching my head at this point. Because listen, to amass the level of talent that they did. And really, you look at five guys on the D line, right? D line alone, they focus so much on 5-star D lineman talent. It's mind boggling to wrap myself around how much talent that is, right? Your Walter Nolan, Shamar Stewart, LT Overton, right? That is a absolute fuck ton of talent on the D line. I'm sitting there, like, what do you do with all that, right? Like, are you literally planning on starting every single one of them, or are you trying to kind of replicate what Georgia does, and that's rotating guys in consistently, right? Rotating dominant guys in all the time. Is that what he's trying to do? What's your thoughts behind amassing that level of talent in one class? Like, what are your thoughts? Like, if you're Jimbo, what is your thoughts? Let's just say that.
Well, I think first off, obviously, you're going to want to play the best player at each position. I mean, the standard, the baseline answer: play the best player at each position. But then, in this era of college football, and we saw it back after Georgia signed their number one recruiting class in 2018. That 2018 class, the transfer portal just exploded. I mean, Justin Fields entering the portal, Brenton Cox entered the portal, Cade Mays entered the portal. I mean, majority of those 5-star talents, those guys that garnered so much hype coming out of high school, left Athens. And I mean, you look at the butterfly effect that created, as people have pointed out on social media, that opened up a scholarship for Stetson Bennett to come back to
Oh
Athens
yeah, I
and
did.
then proceed to get a national championship. So, for Jimbo, I think, you're going to go about your business the same way you have in the past. But now, the worries of the transfer portal is going to be even greater because if you lied to any of those guys, any one of them, any one of those 4-star, 5-star prospects, you told them they're going to get playing time as a freshman and they don't get playing time as a freshman, bye, buddy. You're hitting the transfer portal, and old Jimbo over there is going to have one less 5-star talent on his roster. So combine that with the championship pressure of, hey, we got to produce by the time these guys are probably seniors, like Kirby Smart did with that 2018 class, and he eventually, he did get that championship that everybody wanted and everyone wanted him to do. I mean, there's an expiration date on Jimbo's Fisher time at A&M. This is, I'm ready to put my big boy panties on and come to the table and start contending for national titles. That's what that is. So if they don't get, I mean, one season after getting, one of the best classes of all time, if they don't get 10 wins, that's a huge disappointment. Huge disappointment. I don't care what you lost from last year. You have to get 10 wins. At least.
I'm with Pat here. He says that Jimbo isn't a pressure cooker for sure. Listen, I'm gonna take back your point here. Jimbo can't operate business as usual because that means he'll be Texas 8-4. Okay, you can't do that. So you've got to change some things. And honestly, the key here is getting that talent in there, right? You bring them to College Station. Now it's a matter of just aligning everything, developing these guys, get the mentality that you're going to be a part of something, right? You're a part of something special already. Look at the recruiting rankings, but now you're sitting there and you're trying to fight for a title, and you have one of the hardest gauntlets, period, right? Because you sit there, you play Jimbo. Jimbo will play Alabama in Tuscaloosa this upcoming year. Obviously, you look at Arkansas being legit now. I think Sam Pittman's got them ready to go. What happens afterwards, right? That's the key.
I think you're muted, Rob. We lost you. Rob, I think we lost you.
Oh, I'm always losing, man. It's okay. No, as I was talking to myself, looking at things like this, right? Georgia, Alabama, we business as usual. It's the truth because ever since Kirby Smart came to Georgia, we've had top 5 classes. Period. You can't say the same for Jimbo right now, right? You just got your first ranked class, right? Do I need to pull it back up? Ta-da! There you go. You went from 17th to 4th, 6th, 8th, 1st. Listen, that's fine, cool. You went from 17th when you took over, and now you've got them established as a top 5 fringe, top 10 fringe, top 5, and that's fine unless you're in the SEC. Unless you're in the SEC, you have to be top 5 consistently for multiple years. At that point, you can say business is normal because you look at the SEC outside of LSU in 2019, Alabama and Georgia have been, for the most part, persistent, consistent playoff contenders, right? They both have top 5, top 3 for that matter, recruiting classes. Same thing with Florida fans. When Napier comes in there, listen, Napier's doing a great job recruiting, but I need to see consistency in the top 5 for you to have any kind of merit, in my opinion, because a top 10, top 15 class in the SEC, top 15 is average. You're dead center in the middle based off of this season. And it's only going to get worse. It's only going to get worse. Wait till Texas and Oklahoma come into the SEC. Then you've got 16 teams. It's just insane, right? Out of the top 25, 12 teams in the SEC were top 25. And it was honestly within the top 24 if you wanted to be specific. That right there tells you that a top 5 class, top 3 for that matter, you have to be at the top of the SEC. You have to do that. So a top 10 class is not going to cut it if you're trying to be a title contender. Top 15 for damn sure, right? If you're Vanderbilt, moral victories, top 25 recruiting class is fine. But if you're Georgia, if you're Bama, A&M for this matter, right? Florida, you're getting there trying to, you better rake up. You better recruit your ass off because a top 5 is going to get you to the top. You might get lucky if you're a top 5, top 10, slip up and let a team above you slip. For the most part, you better start hitting that top 3 mark because it's just the way the cookie crumbles at this point in the SEC when it comes to recruiting. Just the way I got to look at it.
You better have, if you're Florida, a better motto than "quote unquote" "Why not Florida?" You better have a lot more in your cookie jar than just words at this point.
Mm-hmm. I'll show you exactly why. Why not Florida? First, I mean, listen. I know Florida's got Napier now, and it's a different environment. But look, kids look at recency bias, right? It's what have you done recently, right? All you've got are false, are promises right now. How to keep. You ain't got shit from the past, and literally current, right? Alabama can say that. Alabama can definitely say that. They just played for a national title this past season, lost. But prior to that, they won a national title the year before. And Nick Saban is just a perennial title contender. You're never going to be out of the playoffs if you're Alabama, so long as you're under Nick Saban. Georgia, you said, why not Georgia, right? Georgia just won a fucking national title, right? You can look at Ohio State. Why not Ohio State? Always in the playoff contention. Always in the hunt, right? Florida can't say the same just yet, right? And I'm not knocking Napier yet, right? I said yet because I can't right now. Doing some good things off the field. But when it comes, I need to see on the field production. And don't get it twisted. What he's done right now is A-okay if you're Florida because you're inspiring hope from what you saw when damn Bozo the Mullah and the Clown over there decided to stick around in the circus for 4 years at Florida, right? That shit's gone now. You know, and me trying to take my red and black hat off. Listen, Nate, you're gonna have to watch out and see what Napier can do. But on the recruiting class, you can't tell me that losing Kamari Wilson, if you're a Dog fan, didn't sting a little bit, right? Didn't sting a little bit because listen, he was a lot for the longest time expected to commit to Georgia to the point where even I myself had him a lock in the class before anything was on paper. Shame on me, but. That's just one piece, right? Now they're in the mix for multiple 5-star things like this. Listen, there's hope in Gainesville, right? There's hope there. What's going to happen when you got Utah coming in week one? I'm telling you right now, I don't care if it's the swamp or not. Utah is a sound team, and they can come in and beat you if you're not careful. You have to come ready to play. We're going to find out what happens. And listen, Georgia's got to do the same thing because we go to Atlanta and we play the Ducks. And listen, I expect us to win that game, but I'm telling you, it will not surprise me if that game is closer and uncomfortable for Georgia fans by the end of the day. It could be close. Just going to leave it there. But I'm telling you right now, Florida, so far, listen, I'm not knocking Napier yet. So Florida fans, and you know how I am. You know how I am. I'm telling you right now, I need to see I need to see some shit on the field first before I really kind of set my verdict out on Napier. But you can't tell me that he's got that culture changing, right? And that can be a problem with Georgia. And that could really be a problem if they get it going.
Auburn's hurting, man. Auburn's hurting that they didn't get him. Auburn's hurting bad that they struck out with him.
That's why. Listen, first off, fuck Auburn. Period. I don't care. If you rock blue and orange like that, and that in the Auburn orange and blue, fuck them. Fuck every one of them. I don't care. Don't really care. Good. I want you to sit there and be down. Period. Honestly, though, listen. You just better kiss Harsin's ass, because if you don't, I'm telling you right now, I don't know who's going to come in and want to sit there and play Kirby Smart and Nick Saban and Jimbo Fisher year in, year out, and going to be consistent. You fucked up.
Also play against your boosters. The boosters at Auburn. I mean, not only are you facing Kirby Smart, Nick Saban, used to be at Orgeron, but now it's Brian Kelly at LSU now. I will miss you, Ed Orgeron. We will miss you greatly. The Go Tigers at the end of a CBS. Yes, exactly. That's it. The end of a CBS interview. I will miss it. But I mean, you're having to play against your own boosters, man. Your own boosters, your own people that basically, can dangle a carrot in front of your face that is your job security. Just dangle that in front of you and play with it. You're having to fight those guys. And those guys give the university the money. Those guys pay for your contract. That's a losing battle.
Not my problem. I'm a damn dog fan at the end of the day. But I'll tell you this. If anybody had a question about how Auburn was ran this offseason, was the telltale sign of how just delusional that fan base and their boosters are. And if I'm a head coach and if I'm going anywhere and Auburn's on that list, you'd be fucking stupid not to look at what just happened with Harsin. Because you're sitting there, not only sitting there while he's on vacation, you try to find a way to fire him. You create a clause, you create something, you create a policy, basically, you know what I mean, stating if you don't comply fully, you can be fired for cause. Ironic that he's on vacation when he does that, though, and he's being investigated anyway. That right, and then you sit there, and when you can't find something, we love you, Brian. We love you. I'm telling you right now, if I'm any head coach trying to find a job and Auburn's on my plate, I'm looking at that and saying, how do I know that ain't going to happen to me? Until the boosters get their heads out of their ass, Auburn's going to stay where they are. I don't see a true big-time head coach coming there. And if they do, cool. But I don't see it. And you might catch a big name like on the tail end of their career and like the twilight of it, right? I just don't see it working out with how the boosters handle that shit. And like I said, I don't care because fuck Auburn. That's why. But if you want to be successful, you better figure that out. And your boosters in broad daylight just made an ass out of the entire program. So with Harsin, after Harsin, if he's gone, who's going to want to come into that, knowing damn well that their job is already a political battle, right? Ain't nobody want to come in. Period. With that being said, sit there looking at it, right? Enough about my tirade, right? Enough about the tirade. Simple enough. Right. Want to hop on and wrap today's show up first off, right? There's a lot to take away. Offense looked efficient, what we expected, right? Maybe even better. A lot of position battles and a lot of spring left prior to G-Day in Well, I wouldn't even say that. I misspoke. Whoops. April 16th, G-Day, into spring camp. Tell you right now, though, it's going to get interesting because G-Day, we're going to find out a lot about our team on live TV, right? This is the way it's going to be. Harrison, it's a pleasure to have you on, my man. Again, tell people where they can find you, man.
Real quick, Robert, I just want to thank you for hitting me up and having me on today. It's always a blast hanging out with Robert. I've been on here a few times now, and nothing quite beats the episode right before Florida, the Florida game this past season, with you and Juan. That was absolutely the most entertaining episode I've been a part of. Any podcast I've been on, that was that was number one. So, guys, you can find me over on Twitter at @topdog_blogs, and you can find the Top Dog Talk podcast with my co-host Dan Kiley on iTunes, Spotify, whatever platform you want, whatever platform you listen to, you can find it wherever. And yes, like Patrick said, the Ministry of Convicts episode, man, oh man, go on the DGD podcast website and you can find the clip I'm talking about. One of the greatest moments I've seen.
The best thing about it was I wasn't wrong either. That's the beauty of it. I was not wrong either. Just gonna leave it there for all y'all Gator fans to soak it up. Just gonna say that. Hey, by the way, Florida, your team just got swept in baseball over the weekend too. By the way, by the Dogs. You're welcome. But on that note, though, guys, have a great day. We'll catch you back on the next episode. Go Dogs.